two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but tonight we are going to be continuing the Halloween theme for this month. So get ready to put on your scary vibes and put this over on my fiance Tammy. Why don't you tell us, what movie did you scare up for us this week?
Abbott Costello meet Frankenstein.
Okay. And it was directed by Charles Barton and Walter Lantz. Filmed in 1948 for Universal Pictures. And it's pretty much a return role for a few of these actors to reprise some of their monster roles and some newbies to the role. But Abbott and Costello were a comedy team that definitely ran from the late 30s to at least the late 50s and 60s, maybe even into to early 70s, to say the least. And they were well known for some of their routines. And this is what IMDb says about the film. The Wolfman tries to warn a dim-witted porter that Dracula wants his brain for Frankenstein's monster's body. Very simple, very brief.
Much like the porter himself.
But let's go around the room, and I guess Tammy, bring us into first impressions.
Well, I don't think I saw this until you and I were already together, so I hadn't really explored these kind of movies at that time yet, you know, or I don't know if you want to say like Abbott Costello or some of the comedy teams yet, you know, so I thought it was funny the first time I saw it, and I like this one in particular I like a lot of their movies, but I like this one in particular because you don't just get Frankenstein, you get Dracula and the Wolfman too. And the actors are very well known actors playing the monsters besides. So I just think it's a lot of fun, you know. I don't find it scary, but to me it's a lot of fun. So I chose this one. That's why I chose this one, is to have something that's not really that scary, that's more fun for the Halloween.
And it's a little different.
Yep.
So you get to choose who goes next. Who did you want to go next?
Brandon, are you ready?
Sure. I was introduced to this by actually I heard about Abbott and Costello, yet never watched much, other than I think Jacob showed me a few episodes of the show when he got it cheap at Movie Stop, the lucky bastard. So I noticed that this is probably the movie I have the most repetition of in my collection, because this movie is an extra on almost every one of those individual Universal Monsters sets.
Right.
So I probably have this movie about like 5 or 6 times in my collection, and they're all a part of collections I can't get rid of them from. So I did watch it.
Not to mention, don't you have that Abbott and Costello movie set? Isn't this?
Yes, it's in there too. So I went ahead and I watched it, and a while back, I don't remember which. I was watching it with one of the sets. I've watched it about 2 or 3 times to complete a couple of the sets because I want to watch all my sets all the way through to make sure they work well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a fun first impression. I had never actually seen them before, other than I think they did. Weren't they the ones that did the Who's On First?
Yeah.
Thing, because I think I saw that, but otherwise I had never seen much with them, so it was kind of a fun thing. I did like the fact that you got to see Bela Lugosi come back to be Dracula after being replaced as Dracula from many of the films, and to see Lon Chaney Jr. Continue to reprise his role as the Wolfman, even though he kept that role for a while. And though it was sad that we did not get Boris Karloff as the monster, it would have been great to have all of the originals there. Mm-hmm. And even a cameo by Vincent Price at the end, even though he was not the original Invisible Man. It was still kind of fun to have him as a voice cameo at the end. So, there was a lot of fun there. It was enjoyable. It was good to watch that again. And that is my first impression.
Okay. What about you, Jake?
Well, this is definitely not my first time with this. It's worth noting Vincent Price did not reprise the role in Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man, which, if I'm to guess,
Claude Rains was the original Invisible Man.
Right. I can't
Quite
remember.
possible it was Claude Rains who ended up doing that.
Possible. I honestly don't remember offhand, but that is probably the one I saw more than any of the others as far as their movies go. The first time I saw Africa Screams, which was okay, and I think I saw Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Definitely saw Jack and the Beanstalk. And I know I saw this one, but this was never the one I saw the most. But I grew up knowing who Abbott and Costello were. I could not swear to it when I first saw them. Okay, I think it's Arthur Franz who plays the role in that one. But anyway, I grew up. I don't know that I heard the Who's On First sketch until I was in my later childhood, but I know my dad referenced it a lot. He was a big fan of that sketch. And he was a fan of the duo generally. So we saw a bunch of their stuff. And yes, as Brandon mentioned, I'm very proud of that pickup of the Abbott and Costello show. That was dirt cheap. I don't even know what they were thinking because it's such a nice set and it's usually expensive. And I have watched the show in its entirety along with a handful of other bonus things on the set. They're a fun duo. A lot of the humor I probably enjoyed more as a kid. There's a lot of basic, they follow a very simple formula that's not like that. Was that?
There's always a formula from previous comedy teams.
Well, I was going to say it's very similar to the Laurel and Hardy formula, and probably
Wheeler and Woolsey.
Right. You got groups like the Marx Brothers and the Stooges. You had more people involved.
I resent that.
Generally, you had with the duo. you would have the one who is the sharp one, the clever one, the usually tends to pick on the slower one.
Yeah.
Who, in both this case and Laurel and Hardy, it tends to be the thin one and the fat one. And from what I understand, and from most accounts, Lou Costello was no dumber than Bud Abbott. Like he was actually a pretty sharp individual, but he played a total moron. And that's the whole hook of this movie. They wanted the brain of a moron. So, so that he would be pliant and easily used. I don't know why this one has never really been on my radar as one of my favorites, because watching it, I'm like, it's really not a bad movie. Apparently, they had to convince Costello to do it. So, and Karloff wanted nothing to do with it, which is kind of sad, as we said before.
That would have been the ultimate monster movie reunion right there.
Well, as it is, I think that according to IMDb, this was the last time you had Dracula, the Monster, and the Wolfman in a movie together until I think it was Van Helsing. So this is like a big farewell, if you will, a big send-off for that sort of multiple thing. I've also always wondered why the hell they call it Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, when really Dracula is the main monster and the Wolfman.
There is an alternate title of this called Abbott and Costello Meet the Monsters.
That would have made so much more sense. But yeah, it's kind of interesting.
I would have to say this is the end game of the Universal Marvel universe.
More or less, yeah. It kind of went out with a little more of a whimper than Endgame, but
This was the Dark Universe goal. Yeah. Well, maybe not this, but
and
I'd say more like House of Dracula.
And those sets that Brandon referenced with the Universal sets, I watched this off of my Dracula set. Hopefully I'll get around to just watching the rest of them soon, but they're really cool sets. They are good multi-film sets. But yeah, it was nice revisiting it. I haven't seen these guys for a while. I couldn't say how long, but it's been a minute. So it's a nice little stroll down memory lane. One of these days we will have to do The Invisible Man and Jack and the Beanstalk, and those are going to be really nostalgic for me. But but it was nice to do this one. It was, Tammy had a good point. It was a good change of pace. Yeah.
Okay. Well, myself, God, I was talking to Jake a little bit about this. I got into Abbott and Costello. I wish that you guys had somewhat grown up locally around here, because you might have known a place out in Racine called the Boathouse, which a lot of the books that Scholastic books didn't sell ended up at this place, and they would have rubber snakes, tapes, and my mom ended up picking up like a ton of Abbott and Costello tapes, like best of and some of their radio routines and whatnot. Ended up getting like Duffy's Tavern, Sherlock Holmes. I love a mystery. She would buy these types of things for me because I was really into Walkmans and stuff like that. In fact, I have a nice little Walkman collection of some older Walkman stuff. But in any case, Abbott and Costello were. I swear, I chewed those tapes to the bit by listening to them, and got into their Who Was On First routine and whatnot. And later on, as an adult, I ended up picking up that box set of the Universal Abbott and Costello. I didn't even go for those volume sets. I went straight for that. And that pretty much has everything that those sets have, and then some. So, and Tammy and I ended up watching the entire set at one point in time. And this one seems to be a favorite of many people of their films, because it does have those classic people, you know, and it's kind of like a interesting mashup of horror, comedy, and this and that. So I'm glad
Apparently,
that I enjoyed the rewatch. Yeah.
well, I just wanted to build off what you said real quick. IMDb said that apparently, of all people, Quentin Tarantino has cited this film as an influence on his genre blending practice. Like he said he looked to this as a way to blend different genres together. I'm like, that's an interesting endorsement there.
Definitely. But in any case, I enjoy watching this one, and I definitely won't mind rewatching it every Halloween, to be honest, because it is that much of a classic thing. And okay, yeah, their shtick is a little corny, but I get a kick out of some of the antics of, especially Lou, and he died so young too. So.
Indeed. Yeah.
Heading back over to Tammy, why don't you bring us into the plot now?
Let's see. Well, I guess the main plot is Dracula wants to bring Frankenstein back to life, but he wants to give him a new brain, and he's got people helping him, and they Costello is the one that is picked out for the brain, because they want somebody that basically is easy to manipulate. And
well, that's something that we find out later on.
well, that's the plot.
Well, yes, no.
And in fairness, we do find out pretty early that he is easy to manipulate because Bud is ordering him around. He's got this woman that he's wrapped totally around her finger, which, granted, she's kind of hot. And, well, he's Costello, so. And one of the running jokes throughout the film is that he seems to be this effortless Don Juan. And Abbott is so, I mean, his character's name is Chick. They don't go by their own names in this one. Abbott is Chick, and Lou is Wilbur. But Chick just can't understand how Wilbur gets all the girls. Of course, you know, as we goes on, we learn why they're going for him. But, you know, it is a good question, and I feel a little bit for Abbott. I'm like...
Well, Abbott's stick is always to insult Lou Costello every step of the way.
Right.
And Lou is just so lovable that he and trusting that obviously, I think that he definitely has a good relationship with Abbott over time. And they get along, and yet they don't, you know?
Well, one of the running gags that seems to be the case in most of their stuff, but it absolutely in these monster movies, like this one and Invisible Man and Africa Screams and all this stuff, in the movies, it seems like Costello is the one who always sees everything. And because he's such a dingus, and because Abbott is got such a superiority complex over him, he's never believed. He's always saying like, what was he keep saying in this one?
I see what I saw, and I saw what I seen.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's a running gag throughout their movies, and definitely in this one, he sees a lot before Chick sees anything and actually agrees. Oh, yeah, there is something going on.
Well, apparently they work at a baggage claim thing for stagecoaches and things of that nature. Because I don't think they're at an airport, or maybe they nearby one or something.
Well, they are doing international luggage because Talbot does call them from London to warn them about the impending stuff.
Correct. So apparently, no matter what,
It's like
they are taking care of luggage of some sort.
Right.
And there's a couple people who come in asking for their luggage, and the luggage falls on top of Lou. And
Well, yeah, because he has to go and grab the one right in the middle of everything and pull on it.
Right.
Right.
And a little bit before that, wasn't there a phone call and something else that he was being told you answer both?
Well, the very first scene is Talbot calling them from London, and they and of course you see Lou like running back and forth between the phone and the bell and not sure what to answer, and Abbott's just like, you do both, and he's like, so finally he kind of dithers, picks up the phone, and what is he? I think he said, hold please,
hold please,
yeah. And as someone who's worked in customer service, I've been there.
Mhm.
I've been more decisive than he was, but it is annoying when you get hit at multiple fronts at once.
Well, yeah, at work sometimes I have somebody coming into the lot and somebody leaving the lot at the same time.
Right.
And you gotta, it's like whichever one you started first is the one you continue, and you tell the other one, I'll be right with you. So it's like if I started checking
Indeed.
somebody out and somebody pulls in, I kind of turn to them and go, hi, I'll be right with you. You know?
Yep. All right.
Yeah, and it's basic customer service. Wilbur, do that. Wilbur, do this. Go get this. You know.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if I would be able to deal with that type of bullshit.
Well, and then you got the guy, after he knocks all the bags down and the pretty girlfriend comes. And, are you okay? I hurt my little head,
Well, does this hurt? No. Does this hurt? No. And then she kisses his head, and he's like, oh, my headache just went away.
Yeah.
But then when he goes back in, now, this is a real test of customer service when the guy comes in and that guy is like totally irate at him.
Well, and actually, we get a little gag here too, because that's Mr. McDougal, Frank Ferguson playing the role. Talbot has just called from London claiming to be Mr. McDougal. And McDougal comes in to claim his bags, and Lou's like, well, something to the effect of, you got here fast. You just called from London. Yeah.
And of course, he goes in the back and tries to handle the big crates by himself.
But before he goes back there, the way Dougal was to him, I mean, if you've ever worked in customer service,
Mhm.
you've had somebody act just like this guy did,
Oh,
screaming at you and
here we go.
demanding, and you gotta like bite your tongue and just be like, okay,
Yeah,
okay. There's
yeah.
only one profession out there that I know that you don't have to put up with that. Be a bartender.
Mhm.
Oh,
See, that's when you screw with their package.
Because when you're a bartender and somebody would act, if I was bartending and somebody would act like that in my bar, I could say, "Get the fuck out," and I
well,
couldn't get it. And I couldn't get in any trouble for it. You know.
it depends. It depends. I worked as a bartender at two places. So I was at a country club and at a family restaurant slash pub.
Well,
And in
maybe
both,
in those settings you gotta behave.
yeah, like if you're like a full on dive bar, especially if you're part owner of the bar, you can do whatever you want. But if you're working for a corporation or a country club, they get to do whatever the hell they want, and you can't do much about it. That's pretty
No,
much,
I guess. I mean, but
yeah,
where I bartended, it wasn't that
yeah.
type of a setting. It was a typical bar.
If you're
And if
just a
somebody
beer
came,
and shots bar,
yeah, and if somebody came in and acted like that, you could tell them where to go, and
Right.
I wasn't going to get in trouble from my boss for either, you know. But
Right. But yeah, this guy, he is absolutely
irate.
he is a Karen before Karen's worth.
He was just being an asshole.
Yeah.
Now, in all fairness, I'm sure he paid one hell of a price for those bodies.
He probably did.
Although he claimed he got him dirt cheap.
but you had them insured for
Right.
$20,000.
Right. That he probably did get them cheap and then just put out an insane claim on them, but but still, he wanted his stuff. Like you could tell, like this guy probably would have made a stink over something that cost him $50. He just seemed like an asshole.
Yep, and then he saw the way that or Wilbur was handling the merchandise, and he was almost getting ready to climb over the counter and like direct him the entire amount of the way. But
In fairness,
the thing that shit. I told him, you know what? I'll take care of it. You just go. I'll take care of him.
Yeah, Wilbur did a great balancing act there.
in fairness, I will say, in fairness, these two, Wilbur and Chick, from what little we see of the way they handle packages, they probably do break a lot of merchandise.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I just got a kick out of Wilbur's balancing act. That was a good one.
Well, yeah, it seemed like there was another package. Packages packaging that seemed to break the fall of. Isn't it that they then go and deliver it to McDougal's place then after that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have them deliver begin to deliver the crates, and the one crate they open up and it's the coffins, and this scene.
And this is where the real fun begins. Yes.
Yes.
Wilbur is reading about the coffin, about Dracula.
About the legend.
Yes, and as he's reading it, he starts hearing the coffin creak, and then he stops reading it, and And if you read some
Every
more,
few seconds, he shouts for Chip.
yep.
Right.
And
And
every time Chip comes, nothing's going on,
and he
as he
gets
walks
more annoyed
away,
as it goes on.
and as soon as he walks away and he starts reading again, things start happening again.
And again, this is one of their regular gags where Chick, Costello will be, he'll be trying to call Abbott. And he has a weird sort of voiceless scream that he uses that I'm not even sure I could imitate. And it's always amusing to watch. But and of course Abbott comes back always in a huff, always like, what is it now? And then like, if you need anything, call me. And then Costello will call him before he's even turned around and be like, yeah, he definitely does that this time on.
Well, and I think that Bela Lugosi kind of has his own like comedic way about him in this scene too, because first he raises the coffin and he just looks at him, and then he he just peeks and then he shuts the coffin again. And then, of course, he leaves his hand outside the coffin for a moment and creeps the heck out of Costello's character. And then, of course, the candle starts to fall off. It's just funny through that first. And of course, the way that Dracula reanimates Frankenstein for a moment with just the bolts on the one side and then to the eyelids, and I wonder how they did those little bolts of lightning though.
Did they do that before Dracula? Didn't Dracula actually, before that even happened, I think he got out of the coffin.
Yep.
And then hid in the back pretending to be a wax figure.
Yep.
Then climbed back in the coffin.
Mhm.
Yep. So he
Yeah.
had some comedy there too.
Yeah.
But of course, they opened up the crate for the Frankenstein monster, and then of course, he reanimated the monster. The monster came over, and then I guess they carried the coffin out. And in between all of this is when McDougal comes in with the police or inspector or whatnot, and he happens to throw both Wilbur and Chip into jail. And from what I understand, they are bailed out by a woman, and they thought it was his lady, but it turns out to be this inspector lady with the I guess
The
from
insurance company.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that, and she bailed them out so that they could they could bumble their way to leading her to where the
where they stash the merchandise, basically.
Correct.
Because somehow they think that these two managed to sneak the contents of these coffins out with, so easy to do, right?
Right. So ultimately, Insurance Gal ends up smooching on Wilbur. In fact, her in a hotel room and basically schmoozies her way into their lives and basically chooses Wilbur as her patsy.
Well, he's an easy one to choose.
Yeah, he is. So I have to think about the song from Cabaret. Deedle dee dee dee, two ladies. Deedle dee dee dee, two ladies. Just for a moment. It's 2 for 1. But
Yeah, I do think that it's kind of like he gets a bit of a swelled head, basically. I'm not giving up either of them.
right.
I'm going to go with both.
And
Right. And I like at one point, Chick tries to put a hypothetical to him of something like of him having like 3 girls. And let's say this girl, we'll call her Mary. You know, and Wilbur's like, well, I would certainly share with you. I'll give you Mary. Yeah.
oh, did you want to bring us a little bit further, Tammy?
Okay, so okay, they're in the hotel room, right? We're at the hotel room.
Yep, and that's when the werewolf dude.
Are we talking about after the bailout or?
Okay, so yeah, they're in the hotel room and they meet um Lon Chaney's character.
Albert, yeah.
Forrest, I believe.
Right. But and he meets them and says, I'm the one that called you. And he's trying to explain things, and then he realizes that the moon, it's he's gonna change. So he gets Wilbur to um lock me in my room. And he's I can't explain it right now, just lock me in my room no matter what you hear or whatever, don't open the door. So he locks him in the room and he comes back. And now before he even got there, Wilbur's still trying to convince Chet about the monsters that he saw at the horror place, and he still won't listen to him. He still won't believe him. So he realizes that Talbot left his suitcase. So he goes over there to drop off the suitcase, and he can't find him anywhere because he's hiding. And you see him hiding, and he's writing this letter, a note about, I brought you your suitcase, and he goes and grabs an orange, and the whole time he's just out of reach every time Talbot goes to grab him. It's funny.
Yeah.
And then he goes back out. Then he's sitting there going, well, did he count the oranges or didn't he? Well, did he or didn't I? Should I take it or shouldn't I? When he knows he's not supposed to, when he's not supposed to be going back in there, he's supposed to keep the door locked,
Right.
So he goes back, and I think the next thing you see is it's the next morning, and they go to leave, and they realize that they have to. They haven't talked to Talbot yet, so they go over there, and the place is just a mess. It is just a mess. And he's trying to tell them that he turned into the werewolf. And Chet is is not having any part of this. He doesn't believe about the other monsters. He sure doesn't believe that he turned into a werewolf, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And but they're supposed to be getting ready to go to a party, like a masquerade party.
Right.
So
Yep.
and
And from what I understand, and the two ladies end up, or no, it's not to the island. It's they end up in the same place where they get dressed up to go to this party, right?
well, the one lady had shown up before they left, and that's how they found out that she's the one that bailed them out. You know, and he's gonna see her later, and then Cassandra shows up, and that's when Abbott, that's when Chet gets real upset because he's like, "How would you have two? You know, how would you have two? You know."
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing we know is they're at this.
Well, and they have this whole conversation about what was it? The whole thing about the what he would do.
Oh, if I had two cigarettes, I give you one.
Right.
Two pairs of shoes, I give you a pair.
By
And-
two girls.
And he says something about, so why don't you take your cigarette and your pair of shoes and gulp?
Right. Oh, okay. So this was the one I was talking about before. You know the old saying, everything comes in threes. Now suppose a third girl should fall in love with you. What's her name? We'll say her name is Mary. Is she pretty? Beautiful. Naturally, she'd have to be. Now you have Mary, you have Joan, and you have Sandra. So to prove that I'm your pal, your bosom friend, I'll take one of the girls off your hands. Chick, you're what I call a real pal. You take Mary.
I do like how he had said like before that I would give you my if I had two
Right.
cigarettes, I'd give you that. It's like, no,
Right.
you just take that cigarette and that other thing I had and go for a walk.
Right. Yeah, I was trying to see if I could find that one, but I don't see it. But... Oh, here we go. Yeah. Yeah, why don't you light that cigarette, put on those shoes, and take a walk for yourself? But yeah, it was interesting.
So now I think they're actually in the place where the ball or the masquerade is going to be.
Oh, well, and one of the ones where Chick gets served, pretty much, he's hitting on Joan, and she's like, well, what are you doing tonight? And he's like, well, he's going to a masquerade ball, but I'm not doing anything. And she's just like, well, in that case, you'll be awfully lonesome.
Damn.
That was cold.
Well, and then Joan, she immediately seemed to be paying attention to that other doctor dude, Steve.
Oh, well, he sure had the hots for her, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, everyone had the hots for Joan.
Understandable.
Understandable, indeed. Yeah. Yeah. And apparently, there was also a running gag that showed up a couple times in the movie of where Talbot is trying to warn them that he turns into a wolf. And at one point, he's like, in a half hour, the moon will be full and I'll turn into a wolf or something like that. And Wilbur responds, well, you and 20 million other guys. And the second time, Talbot actually gets really flustered and annoyed. He's like, no, you don't understand. It's like, yeah.
No, he doesn't. But
No.
I like the part. I like the part where he tells me, "Okay, lock me in my room," and so he does. But
Mhm.
then he comes back, realizes his luggage it has been left in the room, so it
Mhm.
goes back over.
We're
Yeah.
already past that.
Yeah.
I know, but
like I said, I mean, a lot of those gags are there. I mean, any one of the gags they do try a multiple take on, and it's all about that comedic timing. It's just like Jake said, it's that method of threes. It even goes back to the coffin bit. Is there were multiple? It was a multiple thing just to make sure that the joke came across before it moved on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
yep. And one of the things that I liked about Abbott and Costello is, even though a lot of their routines were similar throughout many of their movies, I do like that they switched it up a lot over time.
Mm-hmm.
So again, down to that comedic timing and not it let like so in your face that you'll get sick of the joke later on.
Okay, so now they're gonna get their costumes on, and I think that was a funny one too. When Chet shows him his werewolf mask, and Talbot's like, "Don't put that down,"
Well, I mean, later on when they talk about like someone was attacked by a guy with the wolf
And they were
mask,
like,
and then
well,
they point out the guy with the wolf mask, and which gets the others in trouble.
and they run into McDougal, and he's like, "I'll find a witness."
I do find it interesting, of course, the costume party, which is funny because Dracula is actually not wearing a Dracula outfit. He's just wearing a normal outfit for the costume party. I really was glad to see Bela Lugosi reprise the role.
Well, he had his cape on when he came to the party. He was dressed like a normal person at the castle. He was because he said he was a doctor, and then he showed up at the party, and he did have the cape on.
It is sad that Bela Lugosi did not play Dracula as often as you would think he did.
Right.
Especially when, one of my first thoughts about that was when I watched Ed Wood, and you would have thought that he played Dracula in every movie that Dracula was in for all time, but no, he played very few of those Dracula roles.
Apparently, the studio didn't want him for the role in this one, and they had to be convinced.
Well, I know in Plan 9, he was dressed like a vampire.
Right. He's played several vampires. Yeah. Apparently, this was his last major studio film. Yeah.
But in any case,
Mm-hmm.
runs into McDougal. They try to get a witness. The helmet keeps slamming in the witness's face. And then of course, then there's the part where Wilbur finds the broom closet. Which ends up not being a broom closet.
Oh, and the castle, yes.
Uh-huh.
And he keeps spinning through that door, and every time something else happens, first he ends up in the room, then he ends up sitting on Frankenstein's lap.
Which Chet doesn't see at all. Any of it.
No, but the fact when he sits on Frankenstein's lap, and when he realizes it, he sees his hand and he sees the other hand, and then he looks at his other hand, And then he's like, okay, there's 3 hands. And he's starting to realize it.
Right. So I believe it's the picture I have on the screen. The
Yeah, that part is pretty awesome.
yeah.
Right.
I could definitely see Glenn Strange trying to hold himself back from laughing his butt off. I swear, when he got up, you could see him grinning a little bit underneath that mask of his. Glenn Strange is who played the monster.
It would be kind of hard not to, especially after, he was sitting on his lap like that, I wonder how many takes they had to do for that one.
Right. I wish I could see the outtakes of some of this stuff. I don't think they kept them due to war times.
But yeah, he gets away from him. He goes back. The wall spins again. He's trying to tell Chet, and Chet's not listening. Then the wall spins again, and he runs into both of them, Frankenstein and Dracula. And then the wall spins again, and it's both him and Chet on the one side, and Dracula and Frankenstein are on the other side.
Right.
So, yeah, every time he's tried to show them, they're not there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So I guess we're about to the point where
even a little bit before the masquerade ball thingy. Cassandra, she didn't want to join in any of it, and Bela Lugosi's character Dracula, well, he wanted her to go, and she was refusing. So he turned her into like what he is. And then she turned. She couldn't get him under her spell. But then Dracula took Joan off to wherever, and that's when everyone, the Wolfman, Chet, Wilbur, they were all in search of Joan. And it turns out that Joan was taken to the island where the castle is. I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
she hasn't been taken yet. She's just on the boat.
Yeah. Okay. But what happens next?
What happens next is they're being chased because the McDougal dude got attacked by the werewolf, and so now everybody's chasing them because they think that Chet attacked them because Chet had the costume on of the werewolf. So they end up over by the boat, and Wilbur ends up on the boat, and I believe Joan is already on the boat.
Well, no. I believe that Steve guy actually shows up and finds Joan. And it's a little bit later that she snaps out of whatever she was in. Because we have a moment where, we have the moment where the Wolfman is battling Dracula throughout wherever they are, and so the monster is chasing them. for quite a little bit, and they keep going out of one room and into another and out and running into each other, basically.
Well,
All
that's
over
back,
the place
that's
and
back
screaming.
at the castle.
Yeah, that is back at the castle. But they end up on a boat together while the monster is coming down the pier. Steve finds Joan. She snaps out of her reverie after Dracula falls from the balcony, I think, into water. At least that's what I thought happened to Dracula. Off a balcony.
Here's the
Ultimately, the Wolfman ends up running him through a window, and they fall into the sea. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the monster tries to follow Chip and Wilbur. They're in the boat. Boat's still tied. They have to get the boat untied. Steve, he finds Joan. She comes out of her reverie for some reason. I don't know why. I thought that she had been bitten by Dracula.
Yeah, she comes out of her reverie when Dracula is apparently killed.
Which I thought he was flying around Wilbur for a little bit. And I like the fact that he turned into a bat with some animation and then reappeared with some animation too. Like from the bat into an animated like human, and then he was real again. I don't know if you guys saw that. The animated sequence of him turning into the bat, and then
it is something that they used a lot back in the days. I mean, from the original Superman serials, to have them fly, they actually did an animated Superman and had him turn into an animation basically when he flew, which is it's a cool technique that they used and one that works pretty well, I think.
And it should be noted that, Dave, at the top of the discussion, you read off the directors. Charles Barton is the movie director, but Walter Lantz took care of the animation sequences.
Okay, that's where I've seen his name before. He was behind Woody Woodpecker.
Yep.
But you skipped over a whole bunch of stuff and went right to the end about the whole thing in the castle, about when they had Wilbur confined, and that's when he found out that they were gonna take his brain and put his brain in Frankenstein, and the whole thing that happened there with the being on the stretcher and spinning him around, and and the whole chase throughout the castle. They try and block off the room, but the door opens the other way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was like a whole bunch
Which Dracula came into the.
There was a whole chase and everything going on that was funnier than now, and you right over there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I was talking about. Them going in and out of rooms and running into each other. That was the chase.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I did state that earlier.
Yeah.
But I didn't mention the transformation of the wolf and him pushing the gurney into Dracula and them just kind of getting into a whole bro room bar fight.
Mm-hmm.
Which this is where it kind of turned into a western.
Shit.
I thought it was funny when they tried to block the door and the door opens the other way.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
And also you got to think they moved that bed awful easily, and they really thought that monster would have trouble with it. But yeah, it was pretty funny where they go to all that trouble moving that table and or the bed in front of the door, and then the monster just opens it the other way. And again, common gag, simple gag, but still pretty funny.
Although technically, you wonder with the original Frankenstein, would it have been able to open doors? Normally, you would have thought he would have just like broke through.
Yeah, but that would have been less funny.
For a moment, when I first heard the Frankenstein monster speak, I always thought it was funny because they reminded me of Herman Munster at that point.
Yeah, it kind of did.
I always think of oh
Oh, Young Frankenstein.
yeah.
Hmm.
I think of that one a lot.
Come back. I was like espresso.
That was one of my dad's favorite movies, and it's just that you know, every time I watch stuff with Frankenstein, there's certain things that remind me of it. You know.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
Especially if it's a comedy one like this, you know.
Probably going to be a good double feature in the near future. Young Frankenstein and Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Yeah. Well, actually, we did do Young Frankenstein on the channel, right?
I believe so.
Let me see.
But David and I went and saw a play where they did Young Frankenstein, and I
No,
thought
we did not.
Really?
I thought they did a really good job. I
was asking someone about this earlier. Was the only Mel Brooks movie we've done Spaceballs, or have we done any others?
I know we've done Spaceballs, but
I thought we did Young Frankenstein because I thought
we did Young Frankenstein on the other channel.
Oh. Well, we'll have to try one of these days.
Yeah, there's a lot of Mel Brooks, so it's hard to say what you could cover most things from him. Oh, maybe we did Blazing Saddles, but I don't think we did.
No,
that
I'm
either.
pretty sure we didn't do that one. But it'd be a good one to hit one day.
Well, I knew Young Frankenstein. I didn't realize it was on the other channel.
All right.
We did it in honor of my dad. I remember that. But like I said, when we went and saw the play, it was really good.
Yep. So, Steve goes and gets the gasoline. Steve goes and gets the gasoline canisters and goes up behind Frankenstein on the pier and brings over a ton of gasoline, and then he lights it on fire, and then of course he throws what looks like a ladder into the fire, but then goes into the fire himself and gets burned to a crisp.
Frankenstein, not Steve. Yeah, I think they might have gone overboard with that gasoline, but you know,
which was kind of different because it's always been portrayed in all the Frankensteins that he's afraid of fire.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that. I guess maybe because they're trying to say that he was in such decline, maybe he didn't even have the energy to become afraid anymore. I don't know. I thought that was weird too, but
yeah, David mentioned that too, and I was just like, yeah, just about everything you've ever seen of Frankenstein, he's always afraid of fire.
Right.
Well,
even in the comedies.
Normally, he was always afraid of it burned his place down. The blind guy. Yeah. And of course, when they finally get the cord loose for the boat, that's when they meet the Invisible Man. And they have a line where they say, Well, at least now we won't be afraid of the monsters or have anything to do with the monsters anymore. But you're about to meet the Invisible Man, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, yeah, that's pretty much the end, isn't it, Tammy?
Yeah.
So, bring us into production.
Well, hi Diego. Oh. I thought the production was good. I mean, you figure, you know, at the time this was made, there was not CGI or anything like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think what they did for effects was really, was really good. I mean, at the time of this, you had to use your imagination, you
The
know?
the old rubber bat hanging on a string bit. That was
And I like how what David said when Dracula would transform.
right.
I like how they did that. I thought that was really neat.
Because it wasn't just straight rubber bat on
Right.
it was animation into it.
And I think when Talbot transformed into the werewolf, they did a really good job on his look or makeup or whatever you want to say.
Right.
Transformation part.
His transformation. I thought they did a really good job on that. I think the sets that they used were pretty decent.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, they had a couple of swinging doors and secret passages and stuff in the
Right.
castle parts. So I think, however many secret passageways they needed looked decent enough.
yeah, I think they did. I think for the time, they did a very good job on their production.
Especially because this was one of the cheaper films Universal put out that year. It was one of their higher grossing films. So they made a lot of money on it, apparently.
I heard like you guys heard too about this one didn't want to play or that one didn't want to play the part or it took a lot of conniving to get the people that were there to actually play their part.
Like Costello didn't want to do it, but they found a way to get him to do it.
I wonder what his reasons were. Why?
Well, according to IMDb, he said that the script was awful and his little girl could have done better. And that's like, I don't know how much of it changed. Okay, let's see. He declared, "No way I'll do that crap. My little girl could write something better than this. A $50,000 advance in salary and the signing of director Charles Barton, the team's good friend, and the man some call their best director, convinced him otherwise."
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Does anybody else have anything to say about the production?
No, I mean, we already covered some of the things like the animation and such.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was pretty. Which I think that was actually the best part of the production, to be honest. The animation sequence from Dracula to the and when they walked into the room after Talbot had his first attack of the room, they're like.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as far as music goes, suppose I'll.
I think the background music was good for it. They had the oomph or whatever you want to say in the right places and the sounds and everything. I think the background music went good with it.
Yeah.
A lot of it was stock music.
Yeah, I was gonna say I barely noticed it for the most part, but it
There
was
was a musical director by the name of Joseph Gershenson, but there are many composers of the stock music used, from Milton Rosen, from Ethmer Roten, to Nicholas Rosa, Hans J. Soter, Walter Scharf, Frank Skinner, and Eric Ziesel. So there were 12 directors of stock music footage used in this, which means regurgitated music to me. Just unused music that they were able to use from probably other composers.
Yeah, it was probably just stuff Universal had sitting in their vaults. I mean, yeah.
Of course, Leslie I. Carey and Robert Pritchard were the sound department. So, let's go to favorite scenes and our favorite characters. Let's start with you, Jake. What were your favorite scenes and or favorite characters?
This is a hard one. In general, with these movies, I've always liked Costello better than Abbott, because he plays the more likable role generally. And Wilbur is no exception. He definitely is more likable of the two. Of the supporting cast, I'm inclined to say Talbot is actually probably my favorite. He comes across as very sympathetic, like you do feel kind of bad for him, and he's genuinely trying to help. So I guess maybe he would be the top one, as far as if I'm picking a favorite character. As far as beyond that, as far as scenes, that's tricky because there's so many little good scenes. Like we said, there's a lot of repeated gags. There's some really good throwaway gags that are barely even a scene. If I had to pick one, I guess I would go with the coffin scene because that was probably some really good. That was a pretty good physical comedy on Costello's part, but also having Dracula kind of taunting him and teasing him that way was pretty fun. So I guess I'll probably go with that.
Okay. How about you, Tammy?
Okay, well, Costello Wilbur is my favorite character. He's just so gullible and so, somehow gets himself in caught in everything,
Into trouble a lot.
Yes.
He's like a little puppy or a kitten or whatever. Like,
Favorite scenes? Yes, it's very hard. There's so many good ones, like the one I said before, when you go to block the door opens the other way,
Yeah.
Or at the very beginning, the way that Dracula first comes out, he doesn't just boom come out, he's a little bit here and a little bit there, a little bit here, and the whole time, Costello is getting more and more freaked out, So, and then to the point where he does that, where he can't talk or scream or whatever, he's you know.
Yeah. Hey, hey, hey.
Right.
Mhm.
So, I guess those would be a couple of my favorites, you know, because there's so many of them that are funny, you know. Oh, and of course when he's sitting on Frankenstein's lap, that's great.
Yeah, that was pretty good. One does have to mention a little disappointment though, because they changed their names. We never got the iconic "Hey Abbott, Abbott."
Well, they used to do that at the end of their radio show, and they used to do that at the end of their television show.
Yeah. And then, of course, that was spoofed. And we were talking about Mel Brooks. We had the that moment in Robin Hood Men in Tights where the random guy goes, "Hey, Abbott." God, I hate that guy.
Okay, Brandon?
Well, I mean, my favorite's always going to be Bela Lugosi Dracula. And I would say, as far as favorite scene, that scene with the coffin at the beginning, I just thought that was funny.
Okay, and me myself, well, I would have to go with two people, Lawrence Talbot's character and Lou Costello's character. I get a kick out of how scared he gets and how nobody ever seems to believe him, and then suddenly they do a 360 and realize, oh my God, he was right. And when they do finally believe him, then it's kind of like a mad cat rush for anything. And I think that my favorite scene is the Dracula coffin bit in the very beginning as well. I mean, the chase throughout the castle and whatnot, that's kind of zany, but I do get a kick out of the one where they barricade the room and Frankenstein just opens up the door and walks right in. That's a favorite scene too, I think. And the end when the Invisible Man shows up, and I didn't even realize it was Vincent Price until we looked it up. So,
all right.
That was cool to have like all of these best of monster people in here. I am disappointed in Boris Karloff not wanting to be part of it.
Right.
So, because he really should have gotten in on the fun.
Apparently, they got him to do some minor publicity for the film, but that was about it. Yeah.
Well,
He's like, I don't want to be in it. I don't want to see it, but I'll help you guys out.
and it's funny how much of a classic it's become, you know?
Right. And like I said, Karloff ended up being in at least 2 Abbott and Costello movies afterwards. So it's like,
probably because he was wishing, oh my God, I put that in.
Yeah. Maybe he ended up watching this one after all and going, oh, well, shoot.
Maybe I could have made that Frankenstein monster a little better.
Right.
But on that note, did anyone else have anything else to say? Alrighty. Well, Hopefully, everyone out there has enjoyed our thoughts and our discussion on the film. If you have not seen the film, go out and see it. If you'd like to make some comments on what you thought, let us know, and we'll go around and tell you guys a little bit about ourselves and what we do. So, Tammy, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I go on this site, another one with David, and talk about movies with everybody and get their opinions and see how much they liked them or disliked them. And get to experience a lot of different types of movies. And I got a collection of my own, and that's basically about it right now, because now that the summer is over, my car is going to turn into Sleeping Beauty. So,
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm Kotobuki Jake. I am the sometime co-host of SeptumSin versus the World. And we had a nice pickup video last week. Check it out if you haven't. And I guess another one upcoming. And still, for those who haven't seen the Versus Awards yet, it's still up. Have a good look at it. And I just, generally speaking, I keep very busy. There's not enough time in the day to do all the crazy shit I want to get done. So I do what I can. And one of those things, of course, I try to make time each week to watch some movies so I can join these fine folks. And been having trouble getting any other movies in, but I've been doing some good viewing. Otherwise, I'm almost caught up on Only Murders in the Building. One of my brothers and I are working on Agent Carter and Agatha all along, and I started The Penguin a couple days ago. So some interesting stuff on the tube, just not enough movies, but whatever. And also just finished a really interesting book, Grady Hendrix's Horror Store, which is very appropriate for this month, and very intriguing introduction into the world of Grady Hendrix. So, yeah, I guess that is all I have to say about that.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
I'm SeptumSin, a SeptumSin versus the World. We like our movies on the channel, and we try to show that. And the main thing going on this fall is we are rolling with the tabletop horror series. Currently, let's see, our next episode is going to be, let's see if I've got them up here. Because we did the third one we just had up was Heart of the Warrior, which was a great little movie about a Spanish role-playing film. And then the fourth episode this Friday is going to be Night Chills, which is, I want to say that's one of our last truly kind of satanic panic D&D films. And that's going to be a fun one when we discuss that. So let's look forward to that Friday. And of course, check out this pickup on this channel, on my channel, or Dave's other channel, where we had a pickup where Dave showed off some of his masks, and I showed some of the stuff I'm trying to get out on pickups so I can have some clean slate beforehand. And then finally, before I duck out, I did want to say that Jake's going to be leading us next week for the end of the Halloween season. Gosh, it's hard to believe it just ran by. with 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Okay. And is that pretty much it then for you?
Yep.
Alrighty. Well,
Have a good one all.
Yep. And my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey with, that we've been having through this Halloween season. But I do moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we go on almost every Sunday. Although this past Sunday I was taking a little breather because I just DJ'd over the weekend for a good friend of mine's wedding, and she looked very beautiful. Friend of mine from all the way back in high school, so it's been some years. But I do think we are going to be getting back on track this coming weekend. So I believe it's Boris's turn. So that it'll be interesting to see which subtitled film he'll choose in the, since I think he's probably going to go with one of the Ring franchised films, probably one a little outside of the franchise zone, since we've been covering some of those ones that are not so well talked about or as well known. But it shall be interesting coming up. But I have been working with Septum to put together Tales of the Forgotten, but we took a brief moment to help finish the 3rd segment, which ended up being more of a troublesome thing with my computer. So probably when he comes back from his vacation, we will finish that little bit up, and then we'll probably be able to continue work on the Tales of the Forgotten. What little bit we have left to do now that I have some masks to work with, and things of that nature, and then we'll might probably be able to invite invite Jacob back in so that we can film. So yeah, just did a pickup video with Brandon, so definitely check that out once it releases, and we'll see y'all next week with Jacob's Choice here on Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for participating with us if you did, and everyone say good night. Everyone say good night.
Good night.
Good night.